Hello everyone. In this video we'll be speaking about the difference between the parseBoolean method versus the nextBoolean method. So here's a little short on both of them. We can take a string from the user and pass it to a boolean using the parseBoolean method. So initially with this method we take input as a string and then we use the parseBoolean to convert that string into a boolean. Okay, so this is actually about the parseBoolean, then we talk about the nextBoolean. So we'll talk about that one when we come here, but a little recap on that one is a nextBoolean method, on the other hand, takes a boolean value directly from the user. So let's start with a little demo on the nextBoolean, the parseBoolean one. So to show this or to demo this, to access the next line or even the next boolean, when we try this somewhere here, we actually need to declare an object of the scanner class. So to do that, we use a class scanner. I'm going to call this input and I'll say new scanner. Notice that my Eclipse scanner is complaining. It's not identifying the class scanner. So over here we've identified that entry is going to come from the user's keyboard and we've created the object, but Eclipse is complaining that it can't find it. So I've got a tip over here. We can import from java.utility. So let's import the scanner class from java.utility. So we got it. Now it's okay. It's not complaining anymore. It is always good to close this when you finish. So at the end of the program, I will actually close the scanner object. So it's more like a warning than an error, but I like to do that. So this way I won't forget to close it later. Okay, so next what we want to do is, this is just a little header on the parseBoolean. We want to prompt the user to enter a boolean value. So we want a message first to tell the user what to do so that they don't just watch an empty screen and have no idea of what to do. So we want to ask the user, is this a test? Yeah, just something that's not very relevant, I guess. And now what we want to do is we want to take the entry from the user as a string first, and then pass that string using the parseBoolean method from the Boolean wrapper class, and store the passed result into a variable of type Boolean, and that result would be either true or false. So initially, let's just do this part first. Take the entry from the user as a string first. So obviously, to take the string from the user, we use the input method and say next line. So that comes in as a string. But this obviously will be lost. Or initially, let's talk about this string being passed into the Boolean. So let's do this part. So the wrapper class would be the Boolean. That's the class. Dot. Now we can access the methods that exist in that wrapper class. So we want the parseBoolean, and we're basically passing that string that came in from the user. That's it. So we've actually done these parts, these two lines. But now we want to store that result into a data type or a variable of data type Boolean, because otherwise this will be lost. If we don't store it, it will be lost. So the data type of the variable needs to match what is returned from here, which would be a Boolean. So let's call this isTest, because it's going to be either true or false. So this is pretty much what translates in Java to all those 4 English lines. So let's print out the result to the user. If true, so let's do a check. So isTest, so this is equal to saying if test is true, do this. But the short way is to actually just do it like this. So this will give you an expression of true or false. This will be true. If isTest is true, then print out a message that you'd like to print to the user. And I seriously struggled with typing that, but that was a test. Now, if it is not true, obviously it's false, so we can just put that in an else block. Now these curly braces are not really mandatory because we've only got one line, so we can even simplify it like this, because if you've got just one line, the condition reads the next line without a curly brace. It counts it as part of the if statement. But as soon as I add more lines, then it's only going to count this one. So you can see that even Eclipse indented that. So if I just come back all the way here and press enter, we can see that Eclipse indented this to be under this check, meaning that this is actually part of the test. But as soon as I hit another enter, it just counts whatever comes in as not part of the if statement. I like to keep the curly braces though, because it's kind of easier for me in the future. If we want to add more lines, I've got my braces and I won't fall into any trouble of not including them. All right, let's run this first before we go any further. Is this a test? True. So it says yes, that was a test. But then if I type in false, then it says, I should say that's not a test. Sorry, I should have changed my message. So that was not a test. So one of the drawbacks of copy pasting without paying attention. So that was not a test. Okay, my question is though, what happens if the user types a string that is not equal to either true or false? Will the program crash? Let's try this. So if I say, no, it's not a test. So then it's not really crashing, it's telling me that was not a test. So I've got the answer here, no, it won't, because the parseBoolean method returns true when string entry is equal to true and false for any other entry. So if I type in true, then that's always going to come to the true part. But if it's anything else not true, like say anything, then that counts as a false. So this is actually how the parseBoolean works. Now we'll look at the nextBoolean and see the main difference in how it behaves if we give it some other value. So let's see. So over here we want to prompt the user. We want to prompt the user to enter a Boolean. So it'll pretty much be the same as this one. Is this a test? And take entry from the user using the Boolean. So this is the part that's going to be a little bit different. So instead of doing it this way, I'm just going to take that line and show you what difference we do. Take the entry from the user as a Boolean using the nextBoolean. So instead of this part here, we're not passing anything. And just because we are reusing that same variable, which is a Boolean, we won't need to declare it twice, but I'll change that in a second. So instead of, when I say input.next line, instead of taking a string, I'm going to take a Boolean. Okay. And store the result into isTest, which is of type Boolean. So we know this is of type Boolean. We don't need to declare this twice because it's been declared at line 26. So I'm going to get rid of that declaration, and I'm only going to keep that variable and just reuse it and now putting in it a variable. So the result would be either true or false. Now let's print out the result to the user, which pretty much is a repetition of this. So let me just copy that part. And just checking what I'm not sure if I've copied. Yes, okay. So if true, that was a test, else that was not a test. So let's see how this works. Okay, now the first one will be the parseBoolean test. Now the second one will be the nextBoolean. So both of them are giving us that was a test, that was a test. Let's try the false test. So both of them are giving us that was not a test, that was not a test. Now we tried with this part, putting anything other than yes, true or false. But how does this behave with the nextBoolean method? What happens if the user types a string that is not equal to either true or false? Will the program crash? Let's give this a try to see what we get. But you can already see my answer in the comment. Anything else? That was not a test, so it didn't crash with the parseBoolean. But what about here? Anything else? It's not happy. Okay. So what we are getting over here is an exception, and it's of type input mismatch exception. Okay, so it didn't find a match to what it expected. So over here I've got the answer, yes it will. Any entry that is not equal to true or false will be interpreted as an input mismatch that will cause the program to throw an error. So that is the main difference between both of them. The first one, in the parseBoolean, we've actually taken the input as a string, passed it into a Boolean using the Boolean wrapper class. But the thing about this one is if it doesn't find the word true, it translates anything else to false. And when we say true, then that could be, so just a second, I'll put it in here as a comment. If true, or maybe here, if true, true. So it could, any of these capital, or, so if I try this with a capital true, capital T in true, it's still valid. Just anything that is not true in small letter or capital letter is counted as false. And the same for the one. For the other one though, the nextBoolean is, it will only accept true as true, like true with capital T or small t. Both of these will be translated as true. And for false, it only accepts false with a small f or capital F. But in here, if false or any other entry that is not true / true, capital T, small t, is counted as false. So I hope this kind of clarified the main difference between the parseBoolean and the nextBoolean. It is up to you to decide which one to use depending on the application of your program. In the meantime, I hope you have a good week, and I'll see you in the next one.